Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kristen, one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. We at Abbey Research are empathy educators who have PhDs in social science and are obsessed with analyzing and talking about culture, both popped and lived, to help us all figure out how to live a little bit more cohesively together, and not in a kind of Hallmark card sense, but in an actually do the work to do life together kind of way. In service of that, this series, Welcome to My World, is a chance for me to chat with people who are different than me, which is everybody, about something about their lives that may be different than yours and is definitely different than mine. And that way we can all improve our empathetic listening and understanding skills. Today, I am joined by a transparency moment here, dear friend, Tara Murray, who is the Director of Marketing at Benjamin Obdyke, a manufacturer of building products. She's spent most of her 15-year marketing career in the building products industry, which I did not really think existed till I met her. So if you're thinking that, you're not alone. Tara is enthusiastic about her role as a marketer, but her real passion is cultivating an environment that helps others reach their full potential. And as somebody in her life, I can tell you that she does that indeed. Tara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kristen.
Oh, this is so much
Great
fun
to be here.
So, I know that that's like, that's the LinkedIn profile, but
sure.
What else is there? What else should we know about your life?
Yeah, so I'm married. So I've actually been married for over 10 years, but my husband's actually my high school sweetheart. So we've been together for over half of our lives, if you could believe that.
I can't fathom that. I just I met my husband at 28. It's just so different.
Yeah. So, I mean, we met each other in junior high, but didn't start dating until senior year, went to different colleges, and, we're very practical in our approach. It's like, let's see what happens. If this works out, great. And, luckily for me and hopefully him, it did. So, we've been married for over 10 years now, and we have one child, a son, and his name is Everett.
And he is a precious button.
Yes, he is 5.
So 5 years ago, you were in the throes of a career. Was the decision to have a kid, like you mentioned, pragmatism, was this planned? Was this intentional, or was Ebb a bit of a surprise?
Yeah, so it was very much planned. I would say that we were anticipating that the process was going to take longer. So, I mean, starting in that process in your 30s, and having your peer group, kind of struggle, and see a lot of people that it takes a long time to have kids once you've kind of made that decision. It happened for us almost immediately. So that was kind of a shock. So, although planned, it was still, kind of a surprise that I thought I had a lot more time to kind of mentally prepare. And also from a work standpoint too, just, get certain things in order. You're never really ready, right?
That was going to be my next question. Yeah. Are you ever ready? Okay.
You're never really ready. I think since we were in our 30s, when we first had Everett, I think a lot of people around us had written us off as they're not having kids. They're career-oriented people. This isn't happening. Right. I think some of the grandparents, not that they were very pressured or they were pressuring us at all, they just stopped asking, if this is going to be a thing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think a lot of our family was surprised. But it was also, I would say in my 20s, I was very much, if you would have told me you're not going to have kids, you're going to have this career and it's going to take off and it's, it's not going to happen for you. You're never going to want it. I wouldn't have been surprised if some, fortune teller told me that in my early 20s. But yeah, I mean, I think as later in my 20s, starting feeling comfortable in my work-life balance too, I think I was okay, I think I want this. And, my husband and I agreed, something we wanted, and we decided to go for it.
I love the intentionality. I mean, I am such a believer that parenting is a calling. It isn't just something you should stumble into in the best case scenario, when you have control over the whole scenario, because raising a tiny person appears to me to take a lot of time and energy.
For sure.
And so it's not a decision that should be entered into lightly, but unfortunately, sometimes our bodies make different decisions about that than we do. But I love the kind of intentionality and the practicality that you and your husband brought to this. this is not a decision to be made lightly, but it's also not like the only thing in our lives.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm the inner planner in me. I'm like, okay, in January, this is going to happen. This is going to be the year we're going to try. So it was very intentional, but I think, also I felt very very blessed and lucky as I watched a lot of friends struggle, and almost a little guilty that it did happen for us really quickly once we made that decision. But it was also something we went into that if it doesn't happen for us, like, what does that mean? So we had those conversations up front, like, how far are we willing to go? And I think it's good to have those conversations up front, but recognizing you're not really going to know how you feel about it until it's not happening, right? Or, you're getting to that next decision point. So, I was grateful that we were having those conversations early and that we were kind of going into it, to use your words, with some intentionality, but also understanding that who knows. And again, my inner planner and controlling nature is like, no, like, this is the plan, we got to stick to the plan. So I think that's also something, becoming a mom, I've personally had to let go of some of the control, right? Like taking things day at a time. I can't plan my life out years at a time because I'm not sure what my son's going to need, my life's going to need, to plan everything out. So I think there's a recognition of being able to lose control of everything, and just, I think, knowing and recognizing that fact has really helped me approach motherhood in a different way as well.
I love it. I love it so much. Building is not a lady dominated field. So was navigating the I'm pregnant conversation with some of your coworkers, was that more of a challenge, or like in terms of gender kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would say that I was it was exciting. We're a small team, so I think within the company, everyone was really excited. I think also some people were surprised, that, oh, okay, like, Tara's going to be a mom. That's great. I don't think anybody, had any doubts that, oh, you got this, you can do this, you can balance, both things. That's definitely a question that I had going in. Am I going to be able to be the mom that I want to be and still maintain this level of engagement? But from the building industry standpoint, like showing up at trade shows, very pregnant, dealing with very inappropriate comments about how I looked being pregnant and things like that. I mean, that's something that I think in any job industry, just going to the grocery store, I feel like people experience. So I don't know that it was any more uncomfortable for the people that I was interacting with, that here I am. And I think there was a lot more questions on, oh, are you going to come back? I think the assumption was, maybe you're not going to come back, or you're not going to be able to do the same amount of work when you come back. And
was that ever part of your plan? Like, were you ever thinking about being a stay-at-home mom, or?
No, I think, and actually 5 years in at this point, and going through a COVID world where I've had to try to juggle both. I mean, it's a little bit different than being completely dedicated to staying home and caring for my son. But I think that was never a thought. I mean, I've had a job since I was 14. So I feel like to a certain degree, that's always been ingrained. That's always part of who I am. Yeah. And it's hard to imagine myself not working in some capacity. So I think there was some thought process going in that, okay, well, I might not be able to operate at the same level, but I'll always have some semblance of a work life, even being a mom.
That makes total sense. I'm thinking of going back to what you're saying about people in the grocery store and things like that. I know, like, as soon as someone finds out I'm married, the first question they ask is if I have kids. And then my friends with kids say the first question that people ask is, are you going to have any more? Is that been your experience? Like, as soon as Ev was born, did people start asking you about the status of your uterus? Like, what's more?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've definitely shared a lot more about that experience, and, felt pressured more, I guess, to share more about the experience than I ever have, of people that I barely know. But yeah, I think that's a natural question, right? So it took my husband and I a while to get married. So, even we're high school. Is that ever going to happen? Are you guys ever going to do this? And then it took us a while to have kids. And that's the next natural question. And then once you have one, especially, some of our people in our circle that have additional kids, it's like, okay, when do you have the next one? Like, you got to join the club. It's got to be multiple kids. You got to have another one. They're going to be bored. They're going to be, ill-adjusted to the world as single children, like, all kinds of, commentary on having one. But at this point, we're pretty sure we're one and done.
Yeah. And it feels like I'm constantly curious as to why people feel like anyone else's parenting decisions are our business.
Mm-hmm.
It just baffles me. Like, I don't know. I have the privilege of standing on the outside of a lot of this in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And I've been working with teenagers for so long that like there's so many times I just want to grab parents and be like, you're doing fine. Like, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Therapists exist for a reason, as do doctors. Whatever comes up, you'll solve it. Like, but there seems to be so much pressure on y'all to do parenting a certain way. And is that the same for being a working mother? Like, is there a lot of like, this is exactly how you should be a working mother, and if you're not doing that, there's something wrong with you?
Yeah, I think there's some of that for sure. I would say my personality, even when I was pregnant, trying not to do any sort of deep dive internet research, and you get a lot of unsolicited advice.
Oh, for sure. I can imagine. My gosh.
Pregnant, basically you're pregnant, and through raising your child. So I do try to read a lot and take in what I can and what feels right for us.
Okay.
But without getting completely consumed with, we're doing it the right way. Are you going to be a free range parent? Are we going to be helicopter parents? I feel like in most cases you're on the spectrum, and it's somewhere in between. The extremes, typically my husband and I, we don't operate in those extremes. That's just not how
you're not extreme people. Like, that's just not like, it's just not how you operate in the world. So yeah.
Yeah. So, we take a little bit from this and a little bit from that. And, we have a close group of friends, and we try to take, learning from other people's experiences. And obviously, we both have really great foundations from our parents. So taking lessons from that. So it's been really interesting. I think there is a lot of pressure on parenting a particular way. And that also is moving very quickly. Like, one day we're tiger parenting, next day we're free range parenting. It's and
there's a book to buy and a documentary to watch, and
yeah, exactly. So it can be overwhelming. So I think it's, we try to stay grounded, what feels good for us. We talk about it. But also it's, we have a high energy child who's actually, started to struggle a little bit with stuttering. So I think that's something that we've had to kind of adjust, like, our expectations. And I'm reading Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath, and there's a chapter on dyslexia, which really resonated with me, seeing that as an advantage, kind of turning that around. So again, like, you have a child that, struggles with something, you're automatically assuming like they're going to struggle in school and this is going to set him back, and, all of those stressful parts of that. And then again, just, reading and doing some research, it can help you kind of change the way you're thinking about it and make it less stress inducing, but also hopefully point you to tools where you're setting them up for success as well.
I love that. So speaking of tools and of resources and things you kind of like get in, this is such a generic question, but I think it's a really important one. From your lived experience, somebody who is trying to do the working mom thing, what is a piece of advice you'd give them on what worked for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, I feel like this is kind of cliche or obvious, but communication with whoever's in your life, whether that's your spouse, you're doing it, together as a team, communication on what the goals are, being clear on how we're going to parent together. I think that can remove a lot of tension and stress to the conversation.
That makes sense.
Being really clear on, I'm going to be a working mom. My career is very important to me. putting those expectations out
Yeah.
on the front end. So, we're both going into it. It's a complete team effort. We're splitting up soccer and doctor's appointments and all of those things. Because otherwise I think about single parents as, the superheroes of the world. I don't know how I would do it on my own and keep it all together. So that's one thing that, I try to think about too, is maintaining that work-life balance. I feel, again, very lucky and blessed to work for the company that I do that keeps that in high regard. If I didn't have that, I'm sure I would be seeking it out.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a great point, is for leaders, for business owners, and for business people that are listening to this. Like, pregnancy is not a mystery. Like, it happens a lot. And so, like, knowing parenting happens a lot. I don't know if you've gotten that memo, but having ways for folks to communicate with you is also really important. So there are no laws in the United States that govern maternity leave. Our international viewers are always gobsmacked by that, but I swear there is none. There are ethics that a lot of us follow, but not everybody. And so as an organization, knowing what you're going to do around pregnancy is a really important thing.
Yeah. And I think
and parenting in general, because like once they have the baby, they're still the parent. So
right. Yeah. And I think we've evolved as a company for sure. I would say I had some tougher conversations on what I thought my transition plan was coming back after maternity leave.
Okay.
And not as much flexibility based on my experience, and having the company is evolving from a generation standpoint too. We have a lot more people coming in, we're growing. So that means younger employees that are just starting on this journey. So I think the company has also, as a leader at the company, I've really pushed for more flexibility. We need to be, if we've always said that work-life balance is important to us, that needs to also be part of how we treat our employees as they enter new stages in their life. And that's, whether you're having a biological child, if you're adopting, we even sometimes talk about, getting a new pet, and that can be a lot of work.
It can, or having to care for a parent, or having to care for a friend that is like family to you. And we need to be, as business owners and leaders and workers, under the work-life balance is, as you know, one of my least favorite phrases, but what it really means is understanding that everybody is a whole person all the time.
Right.
And if you want them to be a whole person when they show up to work, you better acknowledge that they're a whole person outside of work. And that tension is a mutual communication street. You both have to be willing to make compromises, and both have to be willing to just lay on the table, like, for instance, we're a manufacturing firm, so remote work only counts for some of our people. Like, you can't make things from your house, but within that world, here's the accommodations I want to give you, and here's how we can work together. And I think so many of us women read horror stories that we're afraid to even talk to people at work, and we may enter in with really like a combative attitude. I've heard, like, you're readying for battle, and in some organizations you may need to. But I think a lot of them are just clueless people who have never had to face this before. And
I think having gone through that experience, I was like putting together my case, and this is how, I was preparing for battle. And, I think that's really changed over the course of the company, and as trying to be a change agent for that. But it's something that I do feel like as you're looking at your employees as a leader, it's something that you have to consider. And I think even in these COVID times that we're living in, I mean, we're on video all the time. People have their kids and, pets, and everything's happening around them. So I also feel like we've gotten a unique glimpse of what people's lives are like, right?
Like the last couple times we've talked, I've gotten to see Ev. So like, I'm actually a little bit surprised I don't have a toe-headed guest
like running around
here. But it's important. And I think it's the people who've gotten really grumpy about it. What I have just kind of learned is like, those are not the folks I want to do work with, because we see the world differently. And it's been, I think the learning curve has been good for all of us.
I totally agree. And so, I mean, I try to look for positive things, focus on the positives and the strengths. I think that is one positive that's kind of come out of this experience, is that people can work, they're within parameters.
Yep.
To your point, like not all jobs can be remote or, but how much can we accommodate people's lives to make people really passionate about who we are? I mean, that translates to your custom interactions, and the happier your employees are, and reducing turnover. All of the studies are out there, right? I think.
Yeah, I mean, like we talk about that all the time on the channel. Like it costs 150% of someone's salary to replace them. Like that's a really easy stat to say, but think about that. 150% of someone's salary plus probably 8 to 10 months of them being unproductive while they're looking for other work, and 6 months of onboarding somebody new. And
Right.
I am a huge believer that I can figure out how to make more money and I can't figure out how to make more time. So that's one of the guiding principles we operate by here at Abby, especially with my brother as a new parent. We've gotten a real, like, my brother has a 15-month-old as we record this, almost 15 months. Same. She's an angel baby and I worship her. And we had somebody just go out on maternity leave, and she was very like, well, I can start working as soon, like I can work from home. And we're like, no. My brother's like, I was jello the first 2 weeks. I actually don't want you working because you will forget things. Like, yeah. This is not I don't think you're a hard worker. This is your body needs to take care of your baby.
Right.
And we could tell that she was really shocked by that. Yeah. And she's worked for us for like 10 years. And that was still taken aback because there are so many companies that have a different perspective on that. But, and like, as a woman, I would have been like, no, you don't come back till you're ready. But like, as a new father, Brian could say last year, I remember walking around in a fog, and you shouldn't be making company decisions.
Yeah, it's really
in the first couple weeks of having a baby.
Everett was not a good sleeper. And that was for the first like 18 months of his life.
Soph had colic for the first 4 months.
Yeah. I mean, people go through some really crazy stuff.
Yeah. And we have folks around here with autoimmune disorders. And so like, I hired somebody last year who was shocked that we weren't like, we don't make them take sick days for things like infusions, like things that keep you alive. We don't make you take sick days for. Right. And she was shocked. And I was like, who in their right mind is charging you sick days for the thing that keeps you alive? Like,
yeah, right.
But people are. So it's just mind boggling. So I think, but we talk about this a lot offline, you and I, about part of being a good leader is maximizing human potential, as much as we hate that phrase and how often it's turned around. But this is kind of what we're talking about, is having the hard conversations about different lives. And acknowledging that, I love you. I love how intentional you are in all things in your life. I love that after Ev, you guys were like, we want to pour everything into one kid and our careers. And we want him to see what that looks like and that family looks like. And that you haven't changed your mind because there's been no reason to. And the intentionality around which you do your careers. I know your husband is a very methodical, intentional gentleman as well. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really different energy than we get in a lot of leadership lectures. I think your calm pragmatism is really, really needed in these spaces. And so I'm glad that you joined me today to share it with my folks. So,
thank you so much, Kristen.
Before we sign off, is there anything else you want to share about anything we talked about?
No, I mean, I know it could be silly, but you do you. I mean, I feel like if you can live by, what works for you, what feels right to you, going more with your gut and trying not to go, do it, the doom scroll and constantly evaluating yourself against what other people are doing. If you can kind of shut that out as much as you can and focus on, being present in what's in your life and what the people immediate proximity to you really need, I think, including yourself. I shouldn't leave that, including yourself, listen to those instincts and, just try to black out the rest.
In case any of you are wondering, she was actually talking directly to me. So if you were wondering what it's like being my friend, it's constantly reminding me that I'm a human being and not an automaton. So ask me how many people text me to remind me to eat lunch on a regular basis. So she was listening Sneaky little Tara. Anyway, well, Tara Murray, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody else, make sure you've liked and subscribed. Liked this video, it really does help. Subscribe to the channel and make sure to hit the little bell button so you don't miss anything that we're doing, both here on the main Abby Research channel, where we've got lots and lots of content for you to engage with empathetic ideas, as well as on our second channel, Abby Research Reads, where Dr. Aaron and I and some guests as well talk about books and how we can use books to understand the world a little bit better. We talk about fiction and nonfiction and memoirs and everything in between. So far, we don't talk about sci-fi because neither one of us really reads it. But if you do, hop on board and talk to us about why spaceships are important. So anyway, until then, again, thanks to my guests for today, Tara Murray, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.